Hello and welcome. Tonight, President Bola Tinubu gives security agencies a marching order to bring insecurity to an end in all parts of the country by the end of 2025. Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetokun reiterates crackdown on organized crime as police rescue 13 traffic victims. National Association of Resident Doctors NARD at the Federal Teaching Hospital Lokoja call on the federal government to launch an investigation into the decay of the hospital facilities. And President Donald Trump's steep tariffs order on imports from Mexico, Canada and China draws swift retaliation from the country's North American neighbors as a trade war among the longtime allies escalates. President Bola Tinubu has given a marching order to the security agencies to end insecurity in all parts of the country by the end of this year, 2025. And that's according to the Minister of Defense, Abubakar Badaru. The minister gave the president's charge during a courtesy visit to the Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alake, alongside the Governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Sule. Mr. Badaru further reiterated the government's commitment to eradicating banditry and other criminal activities nationwide, stressing the renewed efforts have already led to the resumption of mining exploration activities in Zamfara State.
I believe you have seen what we have been doing. The bandits are now on their own, but the military will not rest on their oars until we end this thing. And the president has given us marching order to end insecurity in every part of our country by end of this year. And the Chief of Defense Staff, the NSA, and indeed their own team are working day and night to actualize that target. And as you have seen, we are putting pressure in almost all the theaters of operation. And indeed, mining activities has been lifted in Zamfara already. And this is part of the reason we are meeting today, to look at all areas where you have serious issues of security and to see how best we can secure those areas so that Nigeria will continue to make money out of what we have.
On his part, the Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Mr. Dele Alake, notes that the reforms adopted to promote the mining sector has begun to yield positive results within the global players increasingly expressing interest in Nigeria's mining industry.
I've received the utmost cooperation and collaboration and very supportive efforts from the Ministry of Defense, from all this security architecture, and from the Governor of Nasarawa State, because Nasarawa State is really very pivotal to our mineral development in Nigeria, simply because of the endowment. Lithium, for instance, is quite massive in Nasarawa State, so it's like a theater or epicenter of mining in Nigeria. So that is why it's important for me also to always discuss it. In fact, I recall the last time I went to represent the president there to commission a factory. His Excellency, the Governor of Nasarawa State, referred to himself as the Junior Minister for Minerals, Federal Ministry of Minerals, jocularly, but it is symbolic in a sense that it really speaks to the significance of Nasarawa State when we talk about minerals development in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, suspected herdsmen have reportedly attacked Amego Nkalaha community in Ishelu local government area of Ebonyi State in the early hours of today, killing an unknown number of people and burning numerous houses. Confirming the attack, the spokesperson for the Ebonyi State Police Command, Superintendent Joshua Kandu, told Channels Television that operatives have been deployed to the area, adding that the exact number of casualties is still under investigation. This account is supported by the chairman of Ishelu local government area, Mrs. Ifoma Agu, who indicates that the recovery efforts are ongoing, implicating and complicating efforts to determine the precise death toll. And staying with security matters, the Nigeria Police Force says that it has intensified its crackdown on organized crime and criminal activities, particularly human trafficking and kidnapping in Nigeria. The statement by the force PRO, Olumuyiwa Adejobi, today chronicles some of the recent successes recorded by the police. According to him, on January the 31st, police operatives attached to the Kaduna State Command apprehended 3 suspects while trafficking 13 victims to Oyo State in an unmarked vehicle. The victims were rescued and investigation is still ongoing. In a related development, police operatives of the Ogun State Command carried out a covert operation and located the den of kidnappers responsible for an earlier reported abduction on January the 25th, 2025. The statement adds that the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, is commending and encouraging all police officers to remain relentless towards the goal of achieving peace, reassuring members of the public that the force remains committed to effectively combating all security threats. And as part of efforts to restore peace and security in the southern part of Kaduna State, the Muslim community in the area and their Christian counterparts have set up an interfaith committee aimed at promoting mutual understanding, tolerance, and conflict resolution. The group says the Interfaith Committee is a significant step towards breaking barriers and fostering culture of dialogue and cooperation. Speaking at the news conference in Kaduna, the chairman of Jamatul Nasir Islam in southern Kaduna, Ilyasu Musa, says the committee, which was set up on the instance of the senator representing southern Kaduna, Sunday Marshall, has been working tirelessly to address common challenges confronting the region.
When we sat down with my colleague, that is the SA Christian matter, we made a proposal that after our, discussing at our own different level, we will now form an interfaith committee where Muslims and Christians leadership, all the stakeholders will be meeting together to discuss how this peaceful coexistence that we started enjoying will continue to the last. Also, in the aspect of insecurity, we appreciate God, because whatever, the moment we had or we saw a sign of something that may happen, that is, we call it early warning. Now, in the early warning, whenever we talk to the distinguished senator and the other stakeholders, now the early response is being taken immediately. That is why we're enjoying. And in the aspect of kidnapping, sometimes an outsider cannot come to the community and harm you directly. There must be an insider whom you might be connecting with, and we, the Muslim community, and our counterpart Christians, we are now meeting together so that we fit out our bad eggs among us. Because whenever you hide a criminal or bad egg, so you are not helping the community. So we are in that process now.
And still on security, the Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, Brigadier General Ishal Ahmed, has assured Corps members deployed to Zamfara State of their security and improved welfare during this service year. Brigadier General Ahmed gave this assurance while addressing Corps members during his visit to the temporary orientation camp in Gusau, the state capital.
The Director General of National Youth Service Corps, Brigadier General Yushau Ahmed, is visiting the Zamfara State Temporary Orientation Camp, located at the Yobe Training Center in Gusau, the state capital. On arrival, he inspects the quota guard mounted by Corps members. Providing an update on camp activities, the state coordinator reports that 573 Corps members, comprising 444 males and 129 females, were registered and have adapted to camp life.
In the course of this camp, the government has intervened with necessary resources for feeding augmentation. it needs to be restated that Zamfara State government is putting finishing touches on the renovation works at the permanent orientation camp in Safi and the initial temporary camp at GSS Gadabi. In addition, a new and improved local allowances for core members has been approved by His Excellency and will soon be implemented. We are determined to continue our robust engagement with all necessary stakeholders to ensure that the welfare and security of core members in Zamfara State are given a premium attention.
The core members are assured of adequate security and improved welfare as the Director General warns against night travels and unnecessary movements.
One of the most important things is to ensure that they keep to their security. We have given them pamphlets on security matters and equally send it online for them to read. We always talk to them. But there's no way how anybody will secure them more than the way they will take care of security themselves.
The visit provided us an opportunity for the Director General to motivate core members and reinforce the NYSC's dedication to youth development and national integration in Zamfara State.
Away from security now, the National Association of Resident Doctors NARD Federal Teaching Hospital in Lokoja, the chapter is now calling on President Bola Tinubu and the Minister of Health to launch an investigation into the decay of facilities and inhuman treatments allegedly being experienced at the Federal Teaching Hospital. The managing director, a member of the association, are also demanding the immediate reinstatement of their president, Dr. Jimo Umar, who was suspended last year over union activities. The spokesman of the group, Dr. Lushola Bauku, stated this during another peaceful protest staged by members of the Association of Lokoja, Kogi State Capital.
The first duty of the police is security of life and property as enshrined in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And inside that constitution, we have right to movement. The Nigerian police force should put their searchlight on the police force in Lokoja. We are protesting. We gave them our letter of peaceful protest. This is the second time we are protesting. We have been peaceful. They have barricaded the way for us from moving. That is not acceptable. It is not tenable. We are in a free country. And so we're calling President Bola Tinubu to call the IG and put a searchlight on the Nigerian police force in Kogi State. Our demands are clear. Since 2012, there has not been advert for resident doctors. Quote me, since 2012. Between 2012 and now, the numbers of doctors in this hospital has reduced from 315 to now 74. 43 residents. Let me shock you, sir. They have partialized most of us. Let me shock you. Most people that are even on employment here, they are on a very devilish contract called locum, whereby doctors that are supposed to be treating patients will carry their file every 2 months to the admin to sign.
In part two, after the break, First Bank Nigeria appeals against the discharge of a Mariva order placed on the assets of General Hydrocarbons Limited, its directors and shareholders. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our main stories. President Tinubu gave security agencies a marching order to bring insecurity to an end in all parts of the country by the end of 2025. Inspector General of Police Kayode Egbetoku reiterates crackdown on organized crime as police rescue 13 traffic victims. National Association of Resident Doctors at the Federal Teaching Hospital Lokoja call on the federal government to launch an investigation into the decay of the hospital facility. And President Donald Trump's steep tariffs order on imports from Mexico, Canada and China draws swift retaliation from the country's North American neighbors as the trade war among the longtime allies escalates. After years of lying fallow, the shadow of the promise it once held, the Tinapa Free Trade Zone has received a breath of life as plans are underway to revitalize it before the end of this year. The managing director of the Nigeria Export Processing Zones Authority, NEPSA, Dr. Olufemi Ogunyemi, who outlined some of the developments taking place in the different trade zones across the country, says the agency has had fruitful discussions with the Cross River State government on how to get Tinapa Free Trade Zone back on its feet.
Tinapa is a perfect example of why a number of free trade zones in the country are not operational, especially when they involve state government. A state governor is excited, sets up a free trade zone. It's an APC member. The next government for that state becomes a PDP government, or vice versa. Or even in the same party, the next governor may not be totally favorable of the free trade zone concept. So it's not consistent. The interest, the focus on developing the zone is not consistent. But they forget one thing. It's in the agreement. They must pay annual licensing renewal fees. And this can be up to $60,000. See, again, I tell you, it's not free. So this just accumulates. And before you know it, 10 years has passed. And when I came on, a number of state governments, of course, I'm not going to mention any names, or a number of state governments and the zones they're responsible for, they have a large debt. And their license is suspended. Some have come to me to ask, to NEPSA, to ask for waivers. I cannot waive federal government money. The general manager of Tinapa has been working with us at NEPSA to try and find a way of resolving the debt issue and give them all the support to get Tinapa up and running. And I'm hoping and praying, when I say soon, let me say before the end of this year.
To catch the full interview, please watch Newsnight tomorrow by 9 p.m. on all channels television platforms. First Bank of Nigeria PLC says it has appealed the discharge of the Mariva order placed on the assets of General Hydrocarbons Limited GHL, its directors and shareholders, over an alleged indebtedness of $225.8 million. The bank, in statements by its managing director, Olusegun Alebioshu, says that it has also applied for an injunction and/or suspension of the discharge order pending the determination of the appeal. The statement goes further to say that in view of the pending appeal, banks are expected to maintain the status quo. First Bank, however, says reports suggesting that some banks have begun complying with the ruling of Justice Dane Dedipe Olu of the Federal High Court, Lagos, which lifted the Mariva order, is premature, as the necessary steps for banks and stakeholders to comply with the court's decision have not yet been completed. The Tier 1 lender goes on to say that it remains committed to protecting the interests of its shareholders, depositors and stakeholders, and will continue to pursue all available legal avenues to recover unserviced debts from debtors, ensuring that those who have defaulted on their obligations are held accountable. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, is asking President Bola Tinubu to direct the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, and appropriate anti-corruption agencies to probe allegations that over 26 billion naira of public funds are missing, diverted, or stolen from the Petroleum Technology Development Fund and the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources in 2021. SERAP says that these revelations are documented in a 2021 audited report, which was published on Wednesday, November the 13th, 2024, by the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. In a letter signed by SERAP's Deputy Director Kolawole Oluwadare, the organization says there is a legitimate public interest in ensuring justice and accountability for these grave allegations. Tackling corruption in the oil sector will go a long way in addressing the budget deficit and the debt problems facing the country. The letter reads in part, "Despite the country's enormous oil wealth, ordinary Nigerians have derived very little benefit from oil money, primarily because of widespread grand corruption and the entrenched culture of impunity by perpetrators. Serap is now asking governments to investigate and prosecute the allegations, even as any missing public funds should be fully recovered and remitted to the Treasury. A 59-year-old businessman, Chijioke Nana Ibokwe, has undergone a surgery at laparotomy to let out 57 out of 81 pellets of cocaine stuck in his stomach. And that's after 7 days of ingesting the illicit substance in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. A statement issued by the Director, Media and Advocacy of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Mr. Femi Babafemi, says Mr. Ibokwe was arrested at the agency at the arrival hall of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport during the inward clearance of passengers on Ethiopian Airlines flight on Sunday the 26th January 2025. He was promptly taken for body scan, which revealed illicit drugs in his system. The statement adds that after 5 days under excretion observation, he could only expel 24 pellets following initial medical intervention at the agency's medical facility and the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, LASUS, in Ikeja. Well, eventually the suspect was admitted at the tertiary facility where he had to undergo the surgery to extract the remaining 57 wraps of cocaine stuck in his stomach after his wife and brother endorsed the necessary consent forms for the procedure. 300 postgraduate students from Ogoniland have received a 200 million naira scholarship grant under the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project HYPREP. This initiative is part of HYPREP's approach to enhancing human capacity development in that region. The beneficiaries include 200 masters and 100 PhD students selected through an online and physical screening process that began in October 2024. Our River State correspondent Deborah Balama reports.
The selection process commenced in October 2024, following an announcement by the HYPREP project coordinator. The registration and screening process produced 200 master's students and 100 doctorate students beneficiaries. Cheerfully, the beneficiaries received their scholarship checks. The project coordinator, Professor Nene Barini Zabe, makes it clear that the selection process was a transparent one.
Because when they have good education, then the communities will be transformed. Their contributions to national development will also be enhanced. So I feel very excited, and they have assured me, of course, they won the scholarship through a very competitive process. So it means that they are serious students.
Professor Zabe goes on to list additional educational initiatives for Ogoni students at all levels earmarked for 2025 and reaffirms HYPREP's commitment to capacity building through education. HYPREP, according to its project coordinator, has more projects in its kitty.
This year we will also organize training for them, for all postgraduate students from Ogoni, on how to write grant-winning proposals, because some of them have the capacity to win grants and scholarships to study overseas, in line with our policy of inclusivity. We have programs for primary school, for secondary school, for undergraduates and for postgraduate students. In the secondary schools, for example, we want to support them with ICT learning facilities. So we are starting with some selected schools in the 4 local governments of Ogoni. For undergraduates, we will provide them with support by way of giving them grants to be able to do quality research projects.
Some of the beneficiaries share their thoughts on the scholarship grant with us.
I feel very elated. I feel happy that I benefited from this scholarship process. Okay, it eases academic burden that I face, especially now that I'm on my research phase. I'll channel the money into my research to support the research.
This is the first of its kind in the history of HYPREP in Ogoni, and we are proud of the PhD, his leadership styles. We are glad, we are happy, and I want to encourage him that he should keep on doing what he's doing. He has shown that he is indeed an academician, and we are proud of him. Indeed, Ogoni will be great again.
With the grants now disbursed, HYPEP's management believes the financial burden on the recipients have been reduced, allowing them to focus and excel in their academic pursuits. Deborah Abalama, Channels Television News.
Well, earlier this week, the trio of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger Republic officially ended their membership of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. Tonight, Abajide Ogunsanwo, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, is here to share analysis and, of course, insights about the scenarios ahead. Hello, Abajide. It's good to have you on the news at 10. Thank you for joining us. Now, when we look at this issue, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, all leaving ECOWAS, can this be described as something positive or a win for ECOWAS and maybe a loss for the three countries? What is the outlook?
You know, if we look at the recent case study of Brexit, looking at, and this is in January 5 years ago, 2020, officially the United Kingdom left the European Union. And if you look at the results of that Brexit, it's been a loss for the EU and it's been a loss for the United Kingdom. And that's because in the United Kingdom, we've seen slower economic growth, we've seen less foreign direct investments. Even into the UK, we've seen less job opportunities, and we've seen clearly a lot of challenges that the country faces. So for our situation here, ECOWAS and these three countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, it is likely going to be similar. A loss for ECOWAS and a loss for these three countries. But beyond this, and I would like to quickly talk about the perspectives from the side of Nigeria and the perspectives from the side of these three countries, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. Because clearly what is happening is they want to eat their cake and have it. And it's really, really difficult for me to eat this and have it. Now, what do I specifically mean? From the perspective of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, their position is that more than 50% of ECOWAS land area of 5.1 million square kilometer lies in these three countries. So they feel they are going out with a large chunk of ECOWAS. They also feel that currently, because their citizens still will be able to use the ECOWAS passports, it's a big victory for them. And as well, they are partly still in ECOWAS because their citizens have a valid ECOWAS passport and they are also joining a different bloc, which they've tagged them the Alliance for Sahel States, which now opens up possibilities of them partnering with countries like Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya. So for them, they are trying to eat their cake and have it. For Nigeria as well, Nigeria's position is also very clear. And more than half of the population of ECOWAS lives in Nigeria. In simple terms, when we talk about ECOWAS, we are really talking about Nigeria plus. Nigeria is ECOWAS. Majority of the citizens in ECOWAS live in Nigeria, and clearly the market is with us. Beyond this, less than 20% of all of ECOWAS population live in these three countries. So for ECOWAS feels like it's good riddance to. So these two blocks, the new ECOWAS bloc that has ECOWAS excluding these three countries feel they're still in a very dominant position, and these other countries, Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, feel they still have a dominant position because really of all the things I've talked about. So both blocks trying to eat their cake and have it. But eventually it's likely going to lead to a loss for these three countries and yes, a loss for ECOWAS.
Now the question is, how will the new ECOWAS bloc operate? When we talk about how much it will affect counterterrorism operations in the region.
Before we talk about how it will affect counterterrorism, Anne, let's first of all try and think about what exactly is going through the heads of the leaders in Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. So let's take a look at what exactly has led them to perhaps be bold about this decision. First, Burkina Faso. If we take a look at Burkina Faso shares borders with 6 countries. Out of these 6 countries, 5 of them
majorly speak French as their national language. So clearly Burkina Faso has strong ties and bilateral agreements with these 5 countries. All the countries surrounding Burkina Faso, excluding Ghana, has French as a major language, and Burkina Faso, over several decades, has developed strong ties with this country. So the question is, will the ECOWAS, leaving ECOWAS affect their position with their direct neighbors? Perhaps the answer is no. Let's take a look at Niger. Niger shares borders with 7 countries. Out of these 7 countries, 4 of them are in ECOWAS. Algeria is not in ECOWAS, Libya is not in ECOWAS, Chad is not in ECOWAS. However, out of the 4 countries that are in ECOWAS that Niger shares borders with, 3 of them, their major language again is French. So we see Niger having strong bilateral agreements with Mali, Burkina Faso, Benin. So clearly we see that Niger still would ride on its landlocked state to be able to do a lot of trade and economic and security collaborations with these countries that it shares borders with. Let's take a look at Mali. Again, Mali shares borders with 7 countries. However, 5 of these countries are in ECOWAS. It shares borders with Algeria. Algeria is not in ECOWAS. It shares borders with Mauritania. Mauritania is not in ECOWAS. And if we focus on those 5 countries Mali shares borders with, all these countries has French as their dominant language. So again, the leader in Mali feels very comfortable that the history of culture, language, and trade and economic partnership that he has with these countries perhaps will see it through. But again, let's be clear. The Nigerian armed forces have taken their position that the priority of the military still remains to protect Nigeria's territorial integrity. And if you take a look at the statements coming out from the armed forces earlier this week when this happened, they've made it clear that the real test of power is not capacity to leave a union, but capacity to stay in one. And clearly that seems to be what Nigeria is going to do going forward, which is bring together the remaining 12 countries that are officially still in the ECOWAS bloc and show their economic superiority over these countries that have chosen to be out of the bloc.
Okay, Babajide, I mean, this year ECOWAS turns 50 and Nigeria remains the rallying point for ECOWAS. When you look at the future, what is it looking like for the bloc?
So this year, half a century in ECOWAS, we've seen 3 countries, Mauritania, we've seen 4 countries, Mauritania and these 3 countries leave the bloc. So there has to be a new way of thinking for ECOWAS for the next half a century. What is the new vision and mission for ECOWAS? If we take a look at how ECOWAS, the economy of ECOWAS today is, looking at our standard format of looking at how prosperous and the opportunities in these countries are, looking at their GDP per person, what you clearly see is Nigeria is in the top 5 rank of GDP per capita. These 3 countries that are leaving are in the bottom 5, Burkina Faso, Mali, Republic of Niger. So chances are that we'll still see a lot of migration going from these countries that are in the bottom half of the table to countries that are in the upper half of the table. But and beyond this, here's where we finally want to land, and that is, even Nigeria, we need to ask ourselves, how African is Nigeria? And if we take a look at the chart of the week, it will give us an understanding of why, as Nigeria, we need to ask ourselves, how African is Nigeria? I've been studying our trade relationship for the last 6 decades. But tonight I'd like to focus on what has happened in terms of how much Nigeria trades in the last 5 years. And if we take a look at that, in the last 5 years, Nigeria's total crude oil trade, 89.1 trillion naira. However, only 12% of this was with Africa. Nigeria's raw materials trade in the last half a decade, 14.7 trillion naira. Only 9% of this with African countries. Nigeria's agricultural trade in the last 5 years, 12.5 trillion naira. Only 4% of this was with African countries. Solid minerals trade, 14.7 trillion naira. Only 2% of this with African countries. So the question is, how African is Nigeria? Because clearly the numbers don't lie, and from the facts, Nigeria's trade And Nigeria's prosperity really has been out of Africa. And
all right. Thank you very much. That's a good place to end tonight's discussion. Babajide Ogunsewo, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst. Thanks always for your exciting
the pleasure is all mine.
On the news at 10.
I was going to ask you, how African are you?
Very African. Let's look ahead on the news at 10. As the rainy season approaches, Lagos faces yet another test of its preparedness. But how ready is the state this time? We have a special report on how the state is bracing up to tackle the floods and attendant waste management. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The rains are coming, with some light showers recorded in some parts of the country already. Well, how are flood-prone states preparing ahead of the heavy rains? Right here in Lagos, relevant state agencies continue to enforce key flood management strategies and right-of-way policies that govern land use around canals and other water bodies, including the lagoon and the Atlantic Ocean. In this special report, our correspondent Dari Idowu examines the current situation and efforts by individuals and government to keep the state safe throughout the rainy season.
Lagos, one of the states in the country prone to flooding, usually attributed to increasing development and urban expansion. Encroachment on natural water channels, unregulated land reclamation, and poor drainage systems.
The whole place is flooded.
The state faces a relentless battle against rising waters. Every rainy season, the fight to keep its streets dry and its citizens safe become even more pressing. But beyond the chaos, what efforts are in place to mitigate against flooding in places like Okokomaiko, Isheri, Ikeja, Ikpaja-Yobo, Apapa, Shomolu, Surulere, and other areas prone to flooding? Sweepers, scavengers are playing their parts, but a lot more needs to be done.
The debris in the canal, and we want them equally to widen the culverts so that the water can flow easily.
In some areas, structures of those who governments say have violated building code are being pulled down to enforce urban planning laws. The state insists that the decisions are tough but necessary.
We've started witnessing reduced flooding incidences. So definitely what that means is that people that are deliberately having buildings within the right of way of channels, the moment you remove them, is a cause and effect thing. You have something blocking a path. The moment you remove it, then the path becomes free. It is a painful decision. However, you need to look at it from the larger good.
Improper waste disposal is said to be one of the causes of Lagos flooding, so we turn to the state waste managers.
We are evolving from this linear system where we take waste from your household and we take to the dump site, directly to the dump site to bury. We're looking at a more circular program, and that's why in the last 1 year the state government has signed memorandum of understanding with both international and local companies who will play a role in treating the waste, in reducing, reusing, and recycling as much as possible.
Lagos is said to be more than 20 million people, produces about 13 to 15,000 metric tons of waste daily. You probably would have seen it in Ojota, Diolucho's dump site, or somewhere in Igondo. Where did this waste go? The state says they are adopting more sustainable approach of managing their waste. And how do they do that? By recycling them in facilities such as this one.
Through partnerships with recyclers, plastic, once a menace, now fuels an emerging recycling sector that provides jobs and keeps the city cleaner. Muslimat is one of the many grassroots men and women working in the background to keep these PET bottles away from drainages.
2017, my son was in school. He needed money very badly, so I was eager to find a job, anything I could do to support the boy. So there was one of my friends that introduced me to this job. Since then, I've been working for the sector.
The battle against flooding is far from over. One cleared canal, one recycled bottle, and by taking down one obstruction at a time, the state and its people are seeking to build a strong city against the tides of nature. Dari Ido, Channels Television News.
Infrastructural developments now. Governor Abba Yusuf of Kano State has vowed to fight corruption in the state. The governor made the declaration during the commissioning of the road projects in Brogo local government area of the state. Our correspondent Sadiq Iliasu reports.
A mammoth crowd welcomed Governor Abba Yusuf as he arrived at Brogo local government to commission a 9-kilometer road project. The project, executed under the Kano Agro-Pastoral Development Project KSADP, aims to improve the transportation of agricultural produce to markets, benefiting local farmers. During the event, the governor announced a new 13 billion naira project in Rogo to further boost infrastructural development.
In line election promises, we have a robust plan to support in this area and bring about ease of doing businesses, especially in agriculture, economic sector that generates a number of employment. This is what informs our focus on improving agricultural productivity, enhancing access to rural infrastructure, creating employment opportunities in the affected areas.
In a related development, Governor Yusuf also commissioned a 40-bed hospital facility in Zarewa as part of the Sustainable Development Goals (SDG) initiative.
This hospital will serve over 20,000 people that live around here. The hospital is equipped with laboratory services, routine immunization, and antenatal care.
Speaking during the event, he reaffirmed the state government's commitment to expanding access to quality healthcare services.
I therefore want to seize this opportunity to urge the good people of this community to utilize it as it is supposed to be utilized. I also want to call on the Health Services Management Board to make sure that health officials that are competent enough, that have the commitment in discharging the responsibilities, are posted to this hospital.
With these projects, the Yusuf-led administration continues to strengthen its effort in infrastructural development and public service delivery across the state. Sadiq Ilyasu, Channels Television News.
We head to Yobe now, where the governor Mai Malabuni has inaugurated a water treatment plant in an ancient town of Bunigari in Gujba local government area of the state. The plant, which has a capacity to pump 300,000 liters of water per day, is powered by a generator and a solar system for efficient supply. The governor also flagged off the groundbreaking ceremony for the Control of Erosion project, and that's in addition to the distribution of farming inputs at Buni Yadi.
Governor Mai Malabuni, among other government officials, arrived the ancient town of Bunigari for the official commissioning of water treatment plant aimed at addressing the over 100 years of water scarcity faced in the area. The governor, who expressed satisfaction with the project after inspection, asked the residents of Bunigari and its environs to take ownership now that the problem of water scarcity in the area has been resolved.
This is a project which will touch a lot of lives. It's looking at the difficulty of water in this area, and this will provide solution to the years-long problem of water the community has been facing, and especially taking note of the fact that Bunigari is one of the displaced community by the Boko Haram insurgency.
From there, Governor Buni proceeds to Damaturu, the state capital, to commission the newly constructed water quality laboratory located at the premises of the State Ministry of Water Resources. Buniadi is the next point of call as the governor conducts the groundbreaking ceremony for the control of erosion project under its World Bank program, Agro-Climatic Resilience in Semi-Arid Landscape.
The contracting firm, you have the mandate to ensure that the work is done as approved by the World Bank. You also have to ensure that you work with the youth of this community. You have to create jobs and give them source of livelihood.
The state government is injecting resources into the construction of this project, not only to mitigate flood and erosion, but also to optimize the water harvested from the floods to boost irrigation, agriculture for food security, and economic prosperity.
The project is not only to mitigate flood and erosion in the communities or halt further destruction on the environment, but to also optimize the water harvested to boost irrigation agriculture.
Let's head to the world of sports now, where Rivers United pushed for this season's Nigeria Premier Football League title. It has suffered a major blow following a 2-0 defeat to Heartland FC in a matchday 22 clash played this evening at the Dan Anyam Stadium in Owerri. Christian Moloku and Joel Okoro got the 2 goals for Emmanuel Lamuneke's led Nazi Millionaires, and leaving Finindi George's Pride of Rivers 10 points behind leaders Remo Stars. 3SC of Ibadan held Plateau United to a 1-1 draw at the new Jos Stadium to maintain the second spot on the NPFL log and are now 8 points behind Remo Stars. Akwa United dropped bottom of the relegation zone following a 2-0 loss to host Abia Warriors, while Nasarawa United picked their 7th win in 22 games thanks to a 2-0 win against Niger Tornadoes in Lafia. Manchester United suffered their 5th home defeat in 6 Premier League games as Jean-Philippe Mateta's second half already double gave Crystal Palace their 4th victory in 6 seasons at Old Trafford. The result means the Palace have won 3 successive Premier League away games for the first time since 2019 and extended their impressive recent record away from Selhurst Park. United, meanwhile, slipped back to 13th place, having still failed to record successive league wins under Ruben Amorim. Tottenham battled their own way to a morale-boosting 2-0 victory at Brentford to end their 4-game losing streak and edge up to 14th on the table. Away from sports now, Canada, Mexico and China have vowed to respond to sweeping new tariffs to their exports to the U.S. announced by President Donald Trump. Mr. Trump said a levy of 25% on Canadian and Mexican imports, as well as an additional 10% tax on Chinese goods, will come into force on Tuesday. Canadian energy faces a lower 10% tariff. The U.S. president says the move was in response to his concerns about illegal immigration and drug trafficking, 2 of the main promises which he was elected for. In response to this, both Canada and Mexico have said that they were preparing similar tariffs on U.S. goods, while China adds that it will take necessary countermeasures to defend its legitimate rights and interests. Economists have warned that the introduction of the import taxes by the U.S. and the responses from other countries could lead to rising prices on a wide range of products. But President Donald Trump has indicated that he is ready to escalate the duties further if the countries retaliate. A woman has lost her life in northern Queensland as relentless rainfall leads to severe flooding across the region. The victim was aboard a state emergency service boat when it collided with a tree and capsized. The Townsville Local Disaster Management Group has reported that approximately 1,700 homes in the city are at risk of flooding, with some areas facing inundation up to the 2nd floor. As river levels continue to rise, authorities are now asking residents in 6 Townsville suburbs to evacuate, warning that the situation remains critical with raging waters rising, creating a dangerous and life-threatening environment. Parts of northeast Queensland have experienced over 1,000 millimeters of rain since Friday last week, with Queensland State Premier David Carrisfoli indicating that record rainfalls are expected to persist into Monday. Meteorologists have forecast that these could be the most devastating floods the region has ever seen in over 6 decades. A shelling at the busy market near Sudan's capital has filled a mortuary with bodies, and that's according to medical charity Doctors Without Borders. MSF and the Sudanese authorities say the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, were responsible for Saturday's attack in the city of Omdurman, which killed and injured more than 100 people, a claim the RSF has denied. The Sudanese Doctors Union say the majority of those killed at the market were women and children. Eyewitnesses told the AFP news agency that the artillery shelling had come from western Omdurman, where the RSF remains in control. MSF General Secretary Chris Lockyer says the Saturday's explosion caused utter carnage at the nearby Al-Nau hospital, which was overwhelmed with injured patients. But the RSF and Sudan's army have been locked in a civil war for over 22 months, a war that has killed tens of thousands, sparking what the United Nations has described as one of the worst world humanitarian disasters. And the main news again. President Bola Tinubu has given security agencies a marching order to bring insecurity to an end in all parts of the country by the end of 2025. The Minister of Defense, Abubakar Badaru, conveyed the President's message during a visit to the Minister of Solid Minerals in Abuja. We also told you that the National Association of Resident Doctors at the Federal Teaching Hospital, Lokoja, have called on President Bola Tinubu to launch an investigation into the decay of the hospital facility. And President Donald Trump's stiff tariffs order on imports from Mexico, Canada, China have drawn swift retaliation from the country's North American neighbors as a trade war among the longtime allies escalates. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawado. Have a wonderful week ahead. Good night.